Okay, so we have gone through now how to set up a rebreathing circuit. So now I'm going to discuss non-rebreathing circuits and when you might use those as opposed to a rebreathing circuit. Okay, so non-rebreathing circuits are generally selected for patients up to 10 kilos. Now you may find literature that suggests that up to 7 kilos is more accurate for the use of a non-rebreathing circuit. In this practice, it's recommended that you discuss with a supervisor your circuit selection prior to setting your machine up. Okay, so to set up a non-rebreathing circuit, we have more pieces than the rebreathing circuit. So I'm going to go through with you what you need to find in order to set your circuit up correctly. So the pink and the blue tubing here are your scavenging system or form part of your scavenging system. So select those and just pop those aside. You've got your see-through tubing here. This is your inhalation tubing, so you'll also need that. Then you've got this little connector piece of tubing here, rebreathing bag, and your pop-off valve, which looks quite different on different non-rebreathing circuits. So the reason why you will have to find all of these pieces in this practice before you can put your circuit together is because the recommendation for cleaning these circuits is to pull them apart completely and then soak them. So in this practice, you will find that you need to gather all of the pieces of the circuit you need to put the circuit together, but you might be thinking that in your workplace, you actually don't need to do that, and generally they're hung up, already made up, and that's fine, but you do need to learn all the parts of the circuit, and it is much easier to learn the flow if you are manually putting the circuit together. So I'm going to demonstrate for you how to put the circuit together now. I'm going to start at the end of the circuit, which would be the rebreathing bag. So the first thing we want to do is we want to connect the rebreathing bag to the pop-off valve. So just place the pop-off valve inside the rebreathing bag. This next little hole here is actually for the scavenging system. If you remember, I said earlier in the video, generally your scavenging and your pop-off valve will be sitting side by side. So you want to get the end of the scavenging tube and pop that onto that little hole there. Now, while I've got the scavenging tube, I'm going to we just use a little extension set in this practice, and so that's what this pink part is. So I'm going to get the end of the extension set and connect that to the end of the scavenging hose. All right. Once we've done that, we can take our connector piece and we can pop that straight in that hole there. The last piece of the puzzle is the inhalation tubing. I'm just going to pop that in there. All right, so you've got your inhalation tubing, your connector piece, pop-off valve, scavenging tubing, and rebreathing bag. Okay, so practice putting that one together, and then we can connect it to our machine. Okay, so I'm going to discuss with you guys the biggest difference between the rebreathing and the non-rebreathing circuits when it comes to putting them on the machine. When you go to connect a non-rebreathing circuit, my very first recommendation is that you completely remove the soda line from the equation. Remember when we spoke about soda line, I said that it assists in absorbing waste gases. Because in a rebreathing circuit, patients have the potential to rebreathe expired gas. When it comes to non-rebreathing circuits, there is very minimal chance that that is going to happen, and therefore we do not need to use soda line. So for this video, I'm going to completely remove the soda line. This may assist you in learning how to do this quicker, but I can't stress enough that either mentally or physically, when you set up a non-rebreathing circuit and you're learning to do so, you need to eliminate the soda lime from your mind, okay? Now, the way that the anaesthetic gas and the oxygen operates is exactly the same in both circuits. So what I mean by that is, oxygen tank is on, I turn my oxygen flow meter on, I turn my anaesthetic vaporizer on, and what's happening is the oxygen is picking up the anaesthetic and vaporizing it and sending it up through to the same place. Except if you remember, we did have the soda lime attached here, and we have the inhale and exhale here. Instead, we're going to put our inhale tubing straight into that hole, okay? So you can see here, remember this is the delivery of oxygen and anaesthetic straight through to our patient. One line straight through, okay? Now, when it comes to exhalation, going to place this here. We still need to connect to our active scavenging. So, I've got my blue tubing connected to my pink tubing, and my pink tubing connects to my active scavenging. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in here. Now, that is actually how simple it is to connect a non-rebreathing circuit to an anaesthetic machine. The tricky part with the non-rebreathing circuit is not connecting it to the machine, but remembering how it all goes together before it connects to the machine. My advice is that you separate the two tasks, and that will simplify for you how you connect it to the machine. You make sure that you have it connected correctly first, and then connect to the machine. So let's run through how this will work. And as I said to you, a lot of these machines are very similar. They work in very similar ways. So oxygen on, flow meter on. Flow meter comes through and vaporizes our anaesthetic liquid into gas. As we move through here, we come up through this tubing and our anaesthetic and oxygen comes out through this inlet. We follow the inlet down and that will go straight into our patient. Now you will notice here when our patient breathes out, because of the use of valves in this circuit, your patient will breathe straight out this way. And you will see every breath reflected in your rebreathing bag. Now, as your patient breathes out here, we're going to have active scavenging, which will pull waste gases through this tubing and out through the scavenging circuit. So, we operate our pop-off valves in what we call a semi-closed position. You can have a pop-off valve closed during an anaesthetic when you use very, very low oxygen flow rates, but we do not do that in this practice. It's not to say that you won't see it done, but we do not do that in this practice. We always have a partially open pop-off valve for our surgical procedures. To close this pop-off valve, you'll remember we did a little turn on our rebreathing bag pop-off valve. This one is just a push across. Open, closed. Open, closed. Now, non-rebreathing circuits have a safety mechanism, which means that the bag cannot completely overfill. That's helpful for us, but I still want you to get into the habit of leaving your pop-off valves open during anaesthetic and after you set up your anaesthetic circuits. So we're going to go through now. I'm going to demonstrate leak testing. Something you should know though, but because of that safety function, you will never get a full hold of oxygen in your bag because that safety function is designed to stop that from happening. So again, we're going to put our hand over our anaesthetic circuit where our patient would be. We're going to close our pop-off valve And then we're going to push our oxygen flush button, and that will blow our bag up. And what you'll notice is slowly this bag is going to go down. As I said, that there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is the safety function on these circuits, which means that you can't overinflate a bag. And the other thing is that these are designed to be single use. So as soon as you keep using them, you are obviously at risk of wearing out all of the single use components, and one of the single use components is the pop-off valve. Now, despite the fact that our bag has clearly deflated and the pressure has been removed from the circuit, I still want you to get into the habit of opening your pop-off valves after you flush or you leak test your circuit.